Hello WWE fans and YouTube universe, welcome to the first episode of the WWE Daily Review Show. I'm your host DJ Bellman and happy Wrestlemania Day everyone. Today is the biggest sporting event in WWE history, Wrestlemania 32. And it's a very exciting day for all the WWE fans, the entire WWE universe, which includes the wrestlers and all the workers, because they get to show everyone their hard work on all the matches, all the segments of the show, and they get to show their talent to a huge audience for the biggest show of the year. So, because it's WrestleMania today, why not talk about the WrestleMania that started it all, WrestleMania 1, back on March 31st, 1985 at Madison Square Garden. Madison Square Garden, a little history on that with the WWE, is one of the biggest venue spots for the WWE just due to the fact that they've had a lot of events there. They've made it their number one location because even today they still do big events, even if it's just a house show at Madison Square Garden. So to have their first WrestleMania there, it's pretty much a huge thing, and they still use it to this day, just in more of a way that they like to do big house shows there, kind of like a Madison Square Garden event. So without further ado, let's talk a little bit about the original WrestleMania in honor of WrestleMania 32 being today, which, by the way, starts at 4 p.m. Western Time, and I think the pre-show itself would technically start at 3 p.m. at that point. So, let's begin with the review. So, the WrestleMania had a grand total of 9 matches, and every single match, most of them were okay. Match number 1 was between the Executioner and Tito Santana. So this match was more focused on each person was trying to get in the figure 4 lock. The two of them were trying to prove who could do the lock better than the other. Now, does that make for a good match? It made for an okay match. They had some good moves and everything like that. Each tried for the figure 4 lock before the match was over, and neither really got it good enough. But some of the highlights definitely were, for instance, at one moment, the Executioner went up to the top rope to go catch Santana off guard, go jump on top of him, but Santana goes over, lifts him up, and tosses him right off the top rope. And that was kind of cool. And the only other major moment in this fight was when Santana sent the Executioner out of the ring. So overall at the end, Santana proved that he was able to get with the figure 4 lock after hitting with the flying forearm. He was able to get the figure 4 lock up and win the match, proving that the figure 4 lock was really his move, not the Executioner's move. Or he was better at it than the Executioner since he was able to pull it off. So the match itself was okay, not too many highlights, but it was enjoyable. I mean, good way to start the show. The next match was between King Kong Bundy with Jimmy Hart as his manager and SD Jones. Now, personally, this was a mismatch. You got this big guy standing on one side, and you got a guy who's big in his own class, weight class, but small compared to King Kong Bundy, taking him on in a match that just seems like it's going to be quick, and it is. So, these two get in the ring against each other, and within not even, literally like a second, King Kong Bundy grabs SD Jones, lifts him up, slams him into the post, hits him with a big avalanche, hits the rope, jumps on top of him and pins him in, can you guess? 9 seconds. As many matches are in the pay-per-view, 9 seconds is all it takes for the match to be over. And, well, some people might find that entertaining in a way, funny, which kind of is. I gotta rate it a poor match just because there wasn't really anything to it. It was very predictable and it was a complete mismatch. And I'm pretty sure they did that on purpose because they wanted to set the record of the shortest match in WWE history. But I don't know. I don't find them very entertaining just due to the fact that they could have done more with the match to make it entertaining. So, with 2 matches in, that's definitely not a way you want to start the pay-per-view, and it's probably a good thing that that's not how they started the pay-per-view. The next match was match 3 between Matt Bourne and Ricky Steamboat, which this match was actually good. This is the first good match, and the match only lasted about 4.5, 5 minutes, but they were able to get in enough good moves to really get the crowd into it. So, Ricky constantly was able to get Matt Bourne into a headlock, whether it was on the ground or in the air, and he was constantly able to reverse Matt Bourne's backdrops. So Bourne was constantly trying to get behind Ricky Steamboat and toss him over him, but what would happen is literally Ricky Steamboat would get up and flip over him and land on his feet, and instantly he'd get him right back into the headlock. Like, he'd take advantage over all these confusing moments to Bourne due to the fact he was like, wait, you didn't get flipped over? What? No, you're not supposed to land. So it's just kind of interesting due to the fact that Ricky was taking advantage over all these bad moves, but Bourne finally was able to get what looked like he was about to take the advantage by sending Ricky into the corner, but Ricky instantly again was able to counter, and to add insult to injury, he gets up on the top rope and jumps down and karate chops Bourne in the head. And it's like, really? You're constantly reversing him? You gotta hit him in the head and irritate him more? Okay, that works. That's funny. So Bourne goes finally, after constantly getting toyed with pretty much, Bourne finally takes the advantage for a little bit, bear hugs Ricky Steamboat, suplexes him twice, and goes for a pin-up thinking that, okay, I've injured you enough, now I should have the win. But Steamboat's able to kick out within a 2 count, which must irritate him even more. There's a back and forth confrontation between the two of them, and Ricky takes the lead on that, hitting with another suplex, a neck breaker, and just keeps going, and even gets a 2 count on Bourne pretty quick also. Bourne once again tries to go for another advantage or another lead in the match by sending Ricky into the ropes, but once again Ricky capitalizes off this, hits with a double right hand, and gets on the top rope, jumps down, and gets the 3 count. Within 5 minutes, these two put on one of the best matches of the night. And even though, in my opinion, it was the best match of the night, I can only rate it as good because it was such a short match that I don't think it deserves any higher, exactly. But for what it's worth, a 5-minute match getting a good rating is pretty good, actually. And unfortunately, that doesn't say much for the rest of the show. Except for the fact that at least you can think maybe some matches might get good. But yeah, Ricky Steamboat and Matt Bourne did a decent job. Match number 4 was between Brutus Beefcake with luscious John Valentine as his manager versus David Sammartino and Bruno Sammartino as his manager. Now, if you all know who Bruno is, the cool thing about this match is the fact that he's there. He is the WWF. He is the WWF. He is the longest reigning champion the WWF has ever had, including to this day, and I don't think anyone will ever beat that record, kind of like no one will ever beat Undertaker's record at Wrestlemania. I don't think anyone's ever going to beat Bruno Sammartino's record as the longest reigning champion of all time, just because of the fact that that would be, quite a few years, actually. But this match was slower paced than most of the matches we had seen up to this time in the pay-per-view. This match was more like Lockup City. The two of them were constantly trying to take the advantage by getting the other locked up, whether it was locking up their arm or putting them in a headlock or something. They were constantly going back and forth trying to get the other into a headlock. And while that's not per se a bad thing, it led to a very slow match where the two of them were kind of like back and forth, slow paced, and sometimes that can lead up to a lot of great stunts, great moments, and a pick of the pace. This was not one of those matches. This match kind of stayed slow the entire time, and well, it wasn't bad like King Kong Bundy versus SD Jones. It wasn't great where they picked up the pace and picked up the intensity. It kind of just stayed where it was at. They were about back and forth the entire time. And, there were a couple power bombs, couple reverses, but nothing amazing up until the end of the match where Brutus headbutted David Sammartino, sent him out of the ring, and Brutus's father, Luscious Johnny, starts attacking David, and all of a sudden here comes Bruno Sammartino, and he gets involved, and there's a father-son confrontation in the ring between all four of them, and the crowd really got into it. I'm about 90% sure the reason is because of Bruno Sammartino that the crowd really got into this fight. So overall, it was an okay match. It wasn't perfect in any way. It wasn't even what I could consider good. But the ending was a lot of fun just due to the fact we got to see Bruno get into the match, or the crowd got to see Bruno get into the match a little bit, which built for a little bit of a fun moment. And the crowd really enjoyed it. You could definitely tell Bruno was still liked at that time, and he's still liked today, in all honesty. So overall, it was a good match. It ended in a double disqualification due to the fact the two managers got involved, or the two fathers, but it was still okay. The next match was our first championship match. It was the Intercontinental Championship match between Junkyard Dog and the current and the current champion, Greg Valentine, with his manager, Jimmy Hart. Now, wow, Jimmy Hart actually was a manager quite a few times. I didn't know that. So, anyways, this match started off where Junkyard Dog took the lead by going for the arm of Greg Valentine, trying to take an early lead and damage some body parts. And he was able to catch the leg of Valentine and hit him and get him down with a strong punch. And it kind of went back and forth again. It was more of a back and forth confrontation, but some of the highlights were definitely probably closer to the end, after they got into their match a little bit, when Junkyard Dog started taking the advantage a little bit in the fight. Jimmy Hart jumped up onto the side of the ring to distract the ref so Greg Valentine could get a little bit of a breather and try to catch his breath so he could take the advantage of the distraction. Well, Junkyard Dog noticed what Jimmy Hart was doing, and he went over and grabbed Jimmy Hart by the collar, pretty much ready to slug him. And that's when Greg Valentine, standing on the opposite end, decides he's going to try to take advantage of this distraction, and he runs up and he's about to nail Junkyard Dog in the back of the head or something like that. And Junkyard Dog notices, something's wrong. He moves out of the way, and Greg Valentine nails Jimmy Hart right off the ropes, right off the side of the ring, and Junkyard Dog starts taking advantage of that, of the confusion a little bit, by constantly hitting Greg Valentine, getting him into the corner of the ring. But the problem here is Greg Valentine finally figures out what he can do to win the match. He sweeps the legs of Junkyard Dog right out from under him and pretty much puts him over his head. And when the ref starts counting, Greg Valentine puts his legs on the rope and gets the 3 count. Well, they think they win, and Jimmy Hart and Greg Valentine are getting ready to leave the ring. Tito Santana comes out and lets the ref know what actually happened. The ref tries telling Greg Valentine and them they have to come back in the ring because the match isn't done. They decide, sorry it took such a long pause, everyone. They decide that, you know what, no, screw it, we'll take the loss, but we'll take the belt still. So they get the count out, and Junkyard Dog technically wins the fight, but because it's a count out, he does not win the championship. The championship stays put where it's at the time, which leads to the match only really getting an okay in my book, just because of the fact that I don't think that's the greatest of endings. I think that's more of a way to get the match over with a little quicker. I wish he would have got back in the ring, because those two probably could have done a pretty good job, but they still get an okay in my book. So the next match is another title match. This is the Tag Team Championship match between Barry Windham and Mike Rotundo, the champions at the time, with Fred Blasey as their manager, versus Nikolai Volkov from Russia and the Iron Sheik from Iran with Louis Albane on their side. Now, I'm sorry if I pronounced the name wrong. Hopefully I didn't, but if I did, you guys can let me know. So these two come out first, and Volkov instantly gets the crowd irritated at him and Iron Sheik by telling everyone to stand and sing with him the Russian theme song. And it's like, oh, one of you guys. Oh. Well, at least you're not dropping the flag like Rusev is. Hopefully he doesn't anytime. And then the heroes, pretty much, who are supporting the United States, come out and match is underway. And this match, again, it's okay. There's a few... It wasn't amazing in any way, but it was definitely decent. Like, for instance, Sheik started off the match, and Rotundo started off the match by, Sheik knocks down Rotundo really quick, but Rotundo gets right back up and tosses Sheik and quickly takes the advantage of the match. They tag each other in for a little bit between Rotundo and Wyndham, and they constantly hit Sheik off the top rope, which makes for some pretty fast-paced action, which is exactly what some matches need to be. Now, Sheik finally gets Wyndham into the corner when he's in the ring, and what happens is Volkov is right there, and he wraps his arms around, like, right under the elbow, or, my bad, the shoulder, and Sheik tries to take advantage of that by running to the rope and trying to jump up and kick Wyndham while he's being held, but Wyndham's able to get off of this, and Sheik, instead of kicking Wyndham, kicks Volkov right off the rope, and Wyndham quickly grabs Sheik, tags in Rotundo, and once again, they're constantly hitting each other they're constantly hitting him by jumping off of the top rope. So it does lead into Volkov and Iron Sheik taking advantage for a while by so Iron Sheik's in the ring, and he what happens is Sheik grabs him, and when Volkov gets back on his side of the ring, and he's back by the rope, Iron Sheik has Rotunda in his hand, and Volkov puts his boot right up on top of the rope, and Sheik throws his face right into the boot. So they start taking the advantage for a while, and there's quite a few. They take the lead for actually quite a while. It seems like they come back, and the USA guys are not doing the greatest. But later on, Volkov actually gets hit with a bulldog by Wyndham, gets a 1 count, but gets saved by Sheik, and Rotundo at that point comes in and sends Sheik out of the ring. Well, the problem with this is where the match goes downhill a little bit. The match is fun. It's fast-paced action. All of them are doing some amazing stunts. Like, for instance, there was a sunset flip by... I gotta remember. There was a sunset flip by Rotundo over Volkov into a pinup, which gets a 2 count, and that was cool. That really was. The problem with this ending is it's kind of a typical ending up to this day, and you can tell it probably is even then. So Rotundo comes in and sends Volkov or send Sheik right outside of the ring. But the problem is the ref looks at Rotunda and he's wondering, why are you in the ring? So there's a distraction moment between the ref and Rotunda, and what happens is, by no surprise at this point, what happens is Sheik is able to grab his manager's cane and hit Wyndham in the back of the head, knocking him out, and Volkov takes the advantage of this and gets the 3 count, and they become the new champions, which instantly the food starts flying in the ring and everyone's booing, and it's like, ah, man, even back then they had endings like this. But with all due respect to all the wrestlers, they did a good job. It's just kind of an ending that was upsetting, so yeah, I look at that too, and they get an okay in my book. So, not bad, but could have been better. Next up, match number 7, so we're 2/3 of the way done with the pay-per-view, was between Big John Studd with Bob the Brain Heenan as his manager, and Andre the Giant in what they considered a $15,000 slam match. So if you don't know, the stipulation of this match was as follows. If Andre the Giant was able to slam Big John Studd within the time limit and without getting slammed himself, he would win $15,000. If he lost the match, vice versa on both, he would retire early and be done with wrestling. So the problem with this match is most people can probably predict Andre the Giant's not going to be done. They're not going to get rid of him. So, again, predictable match. Well, the interesting thing is, before the bell rang, Big John Studd, when Andre the Giant turned his head, decided to try to take advantage of the distraction and actually dazed Andre the Giant for a little bit, so it seemed like maybe there's hope that Big John Studd might actually put up a good fight. After that, no, not really. Andre the Giant had advantage of pretty much the entire match up to that point. He hit Big John Studd with a couple slaps to the chest, a headbutt, and got him to roll out of the ring so he could catch his breath and get undazed. Then it led later on into Andre the Giant holding on to Big John Studd with a bear hug, weakening him more and more. And then Andre the Giant went for a backdrop, okay? He sends Big John Studd into the rope, and he drops down ready to do this backdrop on him, and Big John Studd holds on to the rope. He comes up, runs up, ready to hit him with a big boot, and Andre the Giant catches his leg, and he's like, nope, I predicted that. And he kicks the leg a few times, and then you hear the crowd chant, slam, slam, slam. So you know the crowd really either wants the match done or they really want to see Andre the Giant get the slam, which I could see that too. Actually, that's probably why. And sure enough, he scoops him up from the bottom without him realizing and slams him. That's the match. And Andre the Giant gets the duffel bag full of money, starts throwing it out to the fans. Fans are loving that, and before he can really do anything else with it, the manager of Big John Studd grabs the money and runs away. Yeah. So, how was the match overall? Poor? Personally, it was just a slow-paced match and a one-sided match once again. And though some one-sided matches can be better than others, this was not one of them. Mainly because it was such a slow match, and personally, two big guys in the ring against each other, it's hard to see two big guys really doing good against each other and making a really exciting match, even though they probably can, like Undertaker and Kane have in the past, or Big Show and Kane, or Big Show and Undertaker. People like that could probably put on great shows against each other, but these two didn't really excite me that much. But that doesn't mean they're bad wrestlers, it's just the fight wasn't that great. So overall, I'd probably say poor. Match number 8 was our third and final championship match of the night, and this was between Lani Kai, the current champion, with the Fabulous Moolah in her corner, and Wendy Richter, the challenger, with Cyndi Lauper in her corner as her manager. And how was the match? It was okay. Wendy had some great moves, absolutely fantastic moves. Like, she locks up Lani, and whenever Lani was ready to get out of it, she would constantly pick her up and slam her back down. And when she was getting choked by Lani, she quickly took advantage of that by, even though the ref didn't do anything, she locked her legs. She did a leg scissors lockup around Lani's waist and took advantage of that. So she had some great moves, and it could have been a good match. The problem with this match, in my opinion, was Lani. Lani was the stereotypical diva in this match. She was constantly pulling hair, she was screaming at the top of her lungs, and to me, that's not entertaining, that's more annoying than anything. And that's just my personal opinion, but it led to the match being, in my opinion, okay. The ending was great. Like, there was one moment where Wendy got Lani around the waist and she pushed her into the ropes, and when this happened, the Fabulous Moolah was over there and grabbed Wendy by the hair and pulled her hair down, but Wendy's manager, Cyndi, came in and attacked the Fabulous Moolah to help her client out. Now, this led to a big boot by Lani. Wendy slams Lani again and gets another 2 count. This led to multiple 2 counts. And the ending, what happened was Lani hit Wendy with a power slam, hit with the high cross body off the top rope. But the cool thing was, even though Wendy was injured at this point, she still was able to reverse and take advantage of the high cross body off the top rope and pin Lani down and get the 3 count and win the championship. So, great job by Wendy. I'm really hoping, watching these pay-per-views though, Lani gets better, because I really don't like the stereotypical divas. The hair pulling and screaming doesn't really look like wrestling. It looks more like a cat fight. So, or kid fight. So hopefully she gets better. Hopefully I see more of people like Wendy, who can actually wrestle pretty well. So the final match of the night was the only other good match of the pay-per-view, in my opinion. Good rated match of the pay-per-view. This one had a lot of guest appearances, like the guest announcer, Billy Martin, either the previous owner or the previous manager of the New York Yankees. Liberace, who was a timekeeper, and he actually came out and danced the can-can. And Muhammad Ali as the special guest referee, which is also really cool. Huge historical boxer. great guy, and probably the best boxer in the entire world. Well, best of all time. So this match is between Rowdy Roddy Piper and Mr. Wonderful, with Cowboy Bob Orton in their corner as their manager, versus Hulk Hogan and Mr. T with Jimmy Snuka in their corner. Now, this match started off pretty wild. So it started off with both Mr. Wonderful and Hulk Hogan starting in the ring, but both taking in the other people. Rowdy Roddy Piper and Mr. T actually started the match. So it leads to the two of them like face to face, nose to nose, and it leads to Mr. T pushing Rowdy Roddy Piper, hitting with a firearm carry, and then all of a sudden all chaos breaks loose as everyone rushes into the ring, and they're all nailing each other and stuff, and they're not paying attention to the match. They're not following the rules of the match. They want to cause damage to each other. And all of a sudden, Muhammad Ali comes in, since the other ref's not doing anything, or not able to do anything. Muhammad Ali comes in, literally knocks Rowdy Roddy Piper out of the ring and chases Cowboy Bob Orton out of the ring, pretty much saying, I'm the ref, this is not going to happen, we're going to have a fair fight, and you're going to listen to me. I'm not going to take this crap. So, while Hulk Hogan and Mr. T are still in the ring and ready to fight, Cowboy Bob Orton and his two guys are leaving the ring saying that we're going to take a timeout. Well, ref's not having that and starts saying, if you don't come in here, I'm going to start the count. Well, the count starts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And Hulk Hogan stops him. Doesn't want to win that way. He wants to win fair and square. He wants an actual fight, and he calls them back into the ring, and sure enough, they were stopped before they could get to the locker room. So the fight picks up. With many great moves like a double clothesline by Mr. T and Hulk Hogan. A double clothesline by Mr. T and Hulk Hogan on Piper, which led to Mr. T slamming Piper and hitting Mr. Wonderful with a hip lock throw after he came after him, and a double power bomb by Rowdy Roddy Piper and Mr. Wonderful where is it? On Hogan, double atomic bomb, my bad. It led to some very fast-paced action and very exciting action. But Rowdy Roddy Piper and Mr. Wonderful took advantage through most of the fight up to this point. Through most of the rest of the match, where they were constantly able to tag team Hulk Hogan and Mr. T with the ref not being able to do anything. Like, for instance, Hulk Hogan and Rowdy Roddy Piper are outside the ring. Mr. Wonderful's outside Mr. Wonderful sends Hulk Hogan out the ring. Mr. T tries to get him out of the ring, gets him out, but the ref focuses so much time on getting Mr. T back into his corner that Hulk Hogan gets taken advantage of by Rowdy Roddy Piper with a chair shot to the back. He gets back in the ring, taunts Mr. T, so they're still distracted. They're still distracting the ref, while Mr. Wonderful takes advantage of this moment and still attacks Hulk Hogan. Gets back in the ring, and it looks like a complete mismatch again. Tags in Mr. T. Mr. T tries to fight both. They take advantage over him. Finally, they're able to tag in Hulk Hogan, and he finally takes a little bit of an advantage by slamming both Piper and Mr. Wonderful's heads together, which leads later on to everyone coming back in. Like, Orton tries to attack, and Snuka attacks him with a headbutt, so he stops him. Again, though, Orton goes to the top rope while Mr. Wonderful is holding Hulk Hogan. He's ready to jump and attack Hogan, taking the advantage of winning the match, but Hogan's able to completely avoid it, and Orton accidentally hits Mr. Wonderful in the back. Like, in the back of the neck, taking him out, and Hogan's able to capitalize off it and get the 3 count and win the match. The problem with... Now, the match was good. The match really was good. I can't say much more because, well, once again, I don't think there was too much going on, and there could have been more, like, big moves, big moments. But for what it's worth, it's kind of interesting how after the match, Orton and Rowdy Roddy Piper left Mr. Wonderful in the ring by himself. And he was just confused when he got back up. Like, where did they go? So, overall, WrestleMania 1 was a decent pay-per-view. Not great in any way, but it was decent. It had some pretty good fights. Most of them only okay. I wouldn't rate it as one of the top 10 WrestleManias of all time. But for a pay-per-view that was just starting up, they definitely made some highlights and made history. And they started an annual event that is loved by millions of people. So, with that being said, WWE, thank you for giving us WrestleMania. From me and everyone in the WWE universe, we thank you. So, that's my review on WrestleMania. I hope you enjoyed listening. Hopefully you agree on some of the stuff. If you have different ideas on what you think of the pay-per-view, go ahead and comment. I would love to hear what you have to say, and I will see you next time. Have a happy WrestleMania day, and have a great rest of your weekend.